with you something I call a sneaky literacy lesson. So this week in my careers course, we did our entrepreneurship unit, and this was the first time I did this lesson with entrepreneurship. So I wanted to talk to the kids about the qualities or characteristics an entrepreneur needed before we went on to have them write a business plan and then create an advertisement for their business. So what we did is a little different than what I normally do is I started with vocabulary. I love vocabulary, but sometimes doing the full lesson is just a little bit much and it focuses too much on the vocabulary than the actual content, which I mean, that's the purpose for vocabulary is for the vocab. So here is what we did. So this is one of my favorite sneaky literacy lessons. The kids didn't even realize what they were doing was it a language arts activity. So I made this set of slides and I'm going to kind of walk you through a student example to show you how I did this lesson. So what we did first in class is we watched the vocabulary video. It's about a minute to a minute and a half long, and it talks about the 10 steps you need to become an entrepreneur. And then the next thing we did is I had the kids go through and read the lyrics a second time. So you can see this student has gone through the lyrics and we kind of skimmed through them again. But what we did differently the second time through is I had them highlight the 10 steps of being an entrepreneur in the lyrics. Now, as the kids were highlighting, I talked to them about the fact that a lot of times they highlight way too much. And I actually had a couple kids that tried to race ahead of me and they had these huge chunks of text highlighted. And so we talked about when you highlight text looking for meaning, you want to get just small pieces. And I gave them the guideline that they were not to highlight chunks of more than 5 to 6 words. There was a lot of debate on that. So they went through, they highlighted things. We talked about, like in the first step, it says learn to discern. We talked about the fact that if they didn't know what discern meant yet, it's okay to go ahead and highlight it, and we could always go back and take care of that in the next step. This took a pretty significant chunk of time during that class period. So the kids worked with a partner if they chose to, or by themselves, and they read through, and their job was to highlight. I gave them about 16 to 17 minutes to read through and highlight and find each of the steps in the lyrics. So once everyone had gone through and did their highlighting or time was up, we went through it together and we checked their highlights. And we really emphasized like, hey, just because you don't have exactly the same thing highlighted I do, it's okay as long as it's close. That pretty much took the majority of the class period, which was totally fine again. So now we have read the lyrics again, and I've sent them back in with a purpose to look in the lyrics for basically what's text evidence. I just didn't call it that. The next day when the kids came in, we went back through the things they highlighted, and we did what I called translating. Because the vocabulary was written at a high school level, because it was a high school level text, I wanted them to translate it into real world language and words they would use. So I kind of reworded my teacher slides as we were doing this. So as always, I found modifications I needed to make as I was teaching. So the students' slides that you can see on the screen don't match exactly to what the teacher's slide said. I told them they needed to put it into 7th grade language that made sense to them and maybe not use more than 3 or 4 words. And so what they had to do was go back into the text again, read their highlight. So for example, they had to read learn to discern. We did this one together. And I showed them how to use the built-in definition dictionary on Google Slides to highlight it and find the definition for discern. So what they had to do is they had to change it into real words. We did this together for the first one because that one was really hard. And then again, I turned them loose for another 12-ish minutes to look through and try to work with their partner to figure out what each of these steps meant. Now, you can see every time I teach something new or every time I teach something, I find something that I needed to fix. On this one, it was a formatting issue. The steps were written way too big, so the boxes kind of got crazy. So if I do this again, I'll adjust the boxes so the text is smaller. So the kids went through, they translated the lyrics into real words. Again, after they were finished translating and using the dictionary on Google Slides, we went through it on the board together to make sure everybody had something that made sense. Again, they didn't have to use the same words I did. They just had to have something similar. After they finished, and this is my favorite part, they had to use a tier chart to rate the steps in importance. So now we have gone into the text and found evidence. We have rewritten that evidence in our own words. And now we're going to analyze those steps and put them in order from the most important to the least important. This is a tier list. They use this on the internet to rate games and different things. I actually got this from Eric Kurtz from Control Alt Achieve at a workshop at the Ohio iTip Google conference or Google Summit. And so what I had the kids do is they rated from S, the most important item or most important quality, all the way down to F, the least important quality. The only real guideline I gave them is they could not have more than 2 steps or more than 2 things per tier. I told the kids if they didn't want to write out the whole steps, they could just do the number of the step. So I gave them about 6 minutes to go through, rate the steps from most important to least important. So you can see this group said 9 and 7 were the most important. So 9 and 7 are use your time wisely and work hard. I can agree with that. And then what they put at the bottom for F for the least important was 6. Let's see what 6 was. Have a good support system. So the last thing I had the kids do, and if I had a little more time to spend on this, now that I've used it once, the last thing I would adjust this just a little bit. The last thing the kids had to do was get up, find someone from a different group, because each group or each person had a different order in their tiers, because they got to decide like what's most important, what's least important. And they had to go have a conversation with that person to discuss why they rated what they rated at the top versus the bottom and kind of talk it through. So now not only have we reread the text, we have highlighted text evidence, we have rewritten that into our own words, we've translated it, rewritten it into our own words, we have ranked them in order of importance, which is picking a side basically, and now we are defending our decision with a discussion with a friend. It was really cool. The kids really liked the tier list. I didn't really have to do a whole lot of explaining, which was nice. And they liked that there was no right or wrong answer. I had some amazing conversations, and my kids have a much better understanding of those qualities an entrepreneur needs and things you need to do to become an entrepreneur. I only told one class when we were finished that this was one of my sneaky ELA or literacy lessons, and one of them told me I was evil. I love stuff like this. I feel like these things are so important because, one, they need to see that literacy is not just reading a book. It can be something as simple as rereading lyrics and translating them. And 2, they need to see that those are skills they can use everywhere. And if you can do it without the kids realizing it, it's even better, because then you don't get that pushback that you get sometimes. If you have any questions about how this lesson worked, feel free to reach out to me. If you are looking for the tier list example or template, like I said, I got that from Eric Kurtz at Control Alt Achieve. He has a lot of great resources, and I cannot wait to show you some of my other sneaky literacy CTE lessons. Bye.